This passage is a slightly tricky passage. It is about cult. The author says that tries to describe the word cult, and he says that it's not in any way different from religion, whatever the size, the background of, or however outlandish the idea of the cult. It is similar to a religion, and it is a religion. It cannot, that is his definition of cult. Let's just read it. It will be a little difficult to read, but the questions, if you go back to the passage, will not be difficult to answer. Let's quickly try to process whatever we can from the passage. The historian Gordon Melton says that the word cult is meaningless. It merely assumes a normative framework that legitimizes some exertions of religious power, those associated with the mainstream organizations, while condemning others. So he says it's meaningless. A cult is only where one part of a religion, the mainstream religion, condemns another part of the same religion. Groups that have approved orthodox beliefs are considered legitimate. So you have certain beliefs in a religion, groups that follow that are considered legitimate, while groups whose interpretation of a sacred text differs from the established norms are delegitimized. Oh, you don't follow us, therefore you are not part of the religion. So he says, therefore, the word cult is meaningless. Such definitions also depend on who is doing the defining. So whether I consider you a part of the religion or I delegitimize you also depends on the person who is deciding whether you belong or not. Plenty of cults identified by anti-cult and counter-cult groups, particularly Christian counter-cult groups such as EMNR, are recognized elsewhere as legitimate religions. Those cults which are in one area called anti-cult, counter-cult groups and are not considered legitimate are recognized as legitimate in another area. Okay? Jehovah's Witnesses, the Church of Jesus Christ, Christ of Latter-day Saints, and even the Catholic Church have all come under fire alongside the Moonies or the People's Temple. So he's talking about how a cult, a group is delegitimized and not recognized as part of a religion, and in another area it is considered perfectly religious. Therefore, he says the term cult is meaningless. To deny a so-called cult legitimacy on the basis of its size, belief, or on atrocity tales alone is to play straight into the normative definitions of power. If you deny a cult legitimacy, if you deny that it's legitimate on the basis of its size or its belief, then you are actually playing into the hands of the dominant powerful groups. You are playing into the normative definitions of power. We label cults because they are easy pickings in a sense, even if their beliefs are no more outlandish in theory than reincarnation or the transubstantiation of the wafer in the Catholic Eucharist. So he says, why do you call a cult a cult? Because they're easy picking, they're easy to criticize. But their beliefs are no more outlandish or exotic or bizarre than some of the beliefs of mainstream religions. And he gives examples, right, where a wafer is used in the Catholic Eucharist as a substitute of what actually happened. Now, people may believe it, people may not believe it. So some people may find that bizarre. So he says, any belief, you believe in it becomes okay. Somebody else believes in it becomes outlandish. So every mainstream religion has outlandish beliefs. He's given an example that some beliefs followed by Catholics may be considered outlandish by somebody else. Correct? In a paper delivered at the Center for Study of New Religions in Pennsylvania in 1999, Melton said, we have reached a general consensus that new religions are genuine and valid religions. A few may be bad religions, some may be led by evil people, but they are religions. So what's he doing? Melton is not using the term cult. He's using the term new religions. He's saying that, look, New religions are valid, they are legitimate. Yes, they may be good, they may be bad, just as religions are, but they are still religions. Okay? To call a group, be it Scientology or the Moonies or the People's Church, a cult is to obscure the fact that to study it and understanding it properly. So, when you call a group a cult, you are actually in some ways obscuring or making uh, kind of not giving importance to the fact that to study and understand that group or cult properly, both sociologically and theologically, sociologically in terms of society and its norms, theologically in terms of religion and its rules, we must treat it like any other religion. Now, you're going to study it to find out if it's legitimate or not. To study it, sociologically or theologically, you have to treat it like a religion. To study it, understand it properly, both sociologically and theologically, you must treat it like any other religion. Therefore, he prefers the term new religious movements. His point underscores, emphasizes the fact that questions of legitimacy, authority, hierarchy, delineation between inner and outer circles as are as much the provenance of classical religious studies as of any analysis of cults. All these come a part of classical religious studies. All these are analyzed when you want to analyze a religion, you're going to use all this. In classical, when you're studying classical religions, you're going to use these. When you're studying cults, so-called cults, also you have to use this. So to analyze it, you have to use these parameters which you are using for a religion. Therefore, it is also a religion. So you should not call it a cult. Of course, the uncomfortable truth here is that even a true church, large, established, tradition claiming church, and cult aren't so far apart. He says that a religion, a proper church, a mainstream established organization, and a cult are not that different, at least when it comes to counting up red flags. The presence of a charismatic leader. What was John Calvin? And finally, he ends the question with, what was Jesus Christ? What was he? Religion accepts us as something, but in an analysis, he was a very charismatic leader. John Calvin was a charismatic leader. Right? So he gives an example that finally, cults and religions are similar in having certain uh, attributes, which he calls red flags. Having a charismatic leader is one of them. All of the following statements are valid arguments except. That means there are three arguments which are valid, one which is not valid according to the passage, one which either is not valid or is irrelevant, is out of scope of the passage. We are looking at something which the author has not stated or one which is opposite to what the author has stated. To label a cult is to side with standardized forms taught by mainstream religions. Yes, that is why an author says you cannot, the term cult is meaningless. Why? The moment you agree that the term is okay, you are assuming that religion has a standardized form. And what is that standard form of the religion? The one that is followed by the majority or the mainstream religion. Correct? So, to label, when you accept the term cult, you are accepting the fact that religions have a standard form, and that standard form is the mainstream religion form. The author says, since that is not correct, the term cult is meaningless. So, therefore, this argument has been made. This is the central argument of the passage. All mainstream faiths were at some time scarred with accusations of cultism. He says it at one point that what was considered mainstream religion now was at one time considered a cult. Many religions that you accept as mainstream orthodox religions now, when they were founded, were considered a cult earlier. Therefore, all religions were scarred with accusations of cultism is correct. All right. Many cults differ from mainstream religions in the bizarre nature of their beliefs. Did he say that? Let's find out. There aren't a lot of differences between a cult and a mainstream religions. He says when you really look at mainstream religions and cults, there is not much of difference. So this has also been made. Now, what is wrong with this? Why would you say this is not a valid argument? Many cults differ from mainstream religions in the bizarre nature of their beliefs. Does the author say a cult is a cult because it has bizarre and this is how it is different? We'll go back to the passage. Look at the third paragraph. To deny a so called cult legitimacy on the basis of its size, beliefs, or atrocity traits alone is to fall into the normative definitions of power, the commonly accepted definitions of power. That is not correct. Now, look at the second one. We label cults because they're easy picking, they're easy to target. In a sense, even if their beliefs are no more outlandish in theory than reincarnation or the transubstantiation. So, what is he saying? Even if their beliefs are no more outlandish, that means their beliefs may be outlandish, but so are mainstream religious beliefs outlandish. So, a cult's beliefs need not be outlandish, are not outlandish means bizarre, something which is very weird, not accepted, not normal, right? So he says even if their beliefs are not any more outlandish than, and he has given examples, than beliefs of the mainstream religions. So what can you infer from here? He's saying that the beliefs of a cult are not in any way more bizarre or outlandish than those of mainstream religions. Mainstream religions also have certain bizarre beliefs, certain beliefs which can be called outlandish, not normal. So do cults. No more bizarre than. That means even mainstream beliefs have, mainstream religions have outlandish beliefs. So, which is the correct answer? Many cults differ from, no, there is no difference, that their bizarre beliefs are no more outlandish than mainstream beliefs. So this is not a valid argument. C, the difference is not in holding outlandish beliefs. Both cults and mainstream religions have outstanding beliefs, so they do not differ on this aspect. Therefore that's an argument that is not made in the passage. It goes against what the author says.